What's up, guys? We're back with another NECA TMNT review, taking a look at another set of cartoon figures, and this is like the last set of stuff that we had pre-ordered, what, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months ago. We're taking a look today at Antrax and Scumbug, two figures that I have just been dying to get a hold of. You know, this is getting us super, super close to finishing up the Rogues from Turtles. All we're really missing is Tempestra now, so I'm really looking forward to that one. But these two are also characters that look really similar in the show and in their vintage figure counterparts. So these guys still do it for me on a number of nostalgic levels because, you know, I love that vintage toy line. So we've got them here, of course, in that telltale yellow and green packaging. So you've got Antrax and Scumbug there in that big window. You've got new toon-style artwork of each of them in their respective corner. And then you've got a product shot of each one on the side panel. And then the back of the box has that same sort of generic bio for Turtles in general, with some recent cross-sell as well as a larger shot of these two bugs. So let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. And here we go. Out of the package are Scumbug and Antrax toon figures. Possibly, I mean, given my mood at any point in time, possibly the best toon figures we've ever gotten from NECA. I mean, honestly, there is so much that just feels different about these and moves different and looks better. They're very much in line with like the ground chuck and dirtbag figures that we recently got too. Those seemed in many ways to be just a step up from just about everything else we've gotten in a long time. These feel to be very much the same, but also feel just better in general because these guys are so different from a lot of other figures. Antrax in particular is, of course, one of the most unique figures in the line. So, I mean, I guess I've already gushed enough about them. Go buy them, right? So if you can get a hold of them, there you go. Review over. But let's get going on these guys, see what they can do, see how they move around. I'm going to take a look at Scumbug first, and then we'll get around to Ant Boy over here. So Scumbug is obviously the more normal of these two figures. I mean, he's obviously still very unique in his own right, but he only has two arms, so that's the big thing. So he's got a lot of surprisingly good mobility here. He moves a lot better than I expected he was going to. To start with, you've got a moving jaw, so that moves up and down, which is really nice. Head is kind of locked in this sort of neutral pose, but he can look down pretty nicely. He just can't really look up too well. Maybe a little bit, but not too much. You've got tilt side to side. You've got rotation. Of course, he is sort of hunched forward, so a full rotation is going to look a little bit odd, but otherwise pretty normal. Arms out at the shoulders. Now, his gun is attached to his backpack. You can move it from side to side if you want, but it's going to sort of get in the way of rotating his arm. Not exactly, like it's not posing a problem, but just, you know, just be aware of it, I suppose, maybe. So you can go all the way around. Obviously, you can't do a full 360 without kind of entangling it, but you're probably not going to do that anyway. We've got a bicep swivel up top there. You've got your double jointed elbow, so he's got really good range there. We've got our hinges and rotation at the wrist, so normal stuff when it comes to an arm. No real surprises there. Torso is honestly pretty well done. He goes, you know, forward and backward. There is a lot of clearance inside of this really fat gut that he's got, so he crunches forward really nicely, and he's got good tilt there too. It's also a rotation point. You've got to kind of hold the waist down, but it's a rotation point. And you've also got your traditional waist twist also. So he does have, I mean, that's a pretty good hunch for a really like barrel-chested figure. I'm pretty happy with that. Your legs go out pretty much all the way. He, of course, you know, has our, not the new style, these are the current style hips. So, you know, updates are all around. His legs go out about that far. That's probably a little bit of a limited area, but not too bad. You've got your twist up there also. We've got our double jointed knees. He is kind of tight down here at the knees for me. Not too bad. I mean, I haven't needed to heat any part of this figure up, so that's good. And then you've got your rocker, which is really nice down here, and hinge at those ankles. And then the other foot is, you know, it's a different sculpt, so it's going to be maybe a little bit different, but they move very, very similarly as far as those ankle rockers. So not really too much difference in terms of clearance there. So he's a really nice figure when it comes to moving him. I was honestly kind of concerned about this area, but they managed to cut that in really, really deep. So he moves just as well, if not better, than most figures in this line. here comes I like the aesthetics of this figure part of the review. And, well, I like the aesthetics of this figure because he looks absolutely, I don't want to say perfect. It's hard to be perfect, but this is pretty damn close. I mean, there's a lot going on with this figure because, again, he is a very unique design. So, you know, he's got like the big sort of barrel chest with all of the like guts almost coming out there. I mean, he's got this really disgusting exposed body down there with all of the black lines, all of it's peeking through on the pants down here. And then, of course, you've got your exposed, buggy, clawed foot down there. You've got your half-transformed arm. Just a lot of cool stuff, especially with the sculpt. I mean, it's incredibly unique. Again, the way they cut this torso to have all these jagged edges, this really bumpy stomach, and still maintain articulation is incredibly well done. The asymmetry of the figure is, of course, really nice if you're into that sort of thing, and I usually am. So, you know, you've got a half-transformed arm over here. You've got a boot on this side with like a pincer claw or something coming out of it. I'm not really sure what this is supposed to be, considering he doesn't have one on this foot, so who knows what's going on there. But it's a really nicely designed figure. A lot of that does come from the fact that he is, of course, such a unique figure, just because he is so different, because he's, you know, a big old bug with a giant carapace on his back that acts similar to a turtle shell, but in many ways does not impede his articulation because, of course, he doesn't have anything on the front. He's also got this giant backpack on his back, too, which doesn't really get in the way of anything. He's got these sort of bendy tubes that connect to his chest here. They go to the back, and then again, like I said, this can come off on the backpack. You just pull it off. It's soft, and you can pop the gun off and put it on the other port on this side if you want him to hold it in his right hand. So you've got options there. Sculpt on this is really nicely done. It's got the sort of two-tone cel-shaded look. You know, he is, of course, whacked down the middle, so darker on the back, lighter on the front. But the sculpt here is tremendous. Very cartoony, very cel-shaded. Very, very minimalistic, while at the same time, you know, still being pretty detailed. Like, it's just sort of a generic mechanical backpack, but it looks nice. Really, though, you know, and let's be honest, the big draw for this figure is undoubtedly this absolutely wacky head sculpt that he's got, because he has this insane expression, and most of it's coming from these massive bug eyes that's coming out of his head. But there's a lot going on here. So, of course, you know, you've got the moving jaw. So you can give him like an even crazier expression. Like, he looks absolutely insane right now. Maybe dial it back just a little bit. But you've got the pincers coming out of his mouth, these humongous yellow eyeballs with the purple pupils and the red veins on the side. He has an exposed brain up top with the antenna coming out. He's got like the little wraps around his antenna, and then you've got him just sort of sticking out there. So there's a lot of things on this figure that count as like a focal point for him. It's, you know, if it's not the tattered clothes and all of the purple parts sticking out, or the backpack, or this big old, you know, carapace shell that he's got back here, which again does look tremendous. Like, the paint job on that is wild. Or the head sculpt. There's a lot to soak in on this figure. He is really well done. Looks very much just like he jumped right out of the cartoon, and it's one of those figures that also gives me a really big hit of nostalgia too, which, you know, it always works for me, because this character does not look that far removed from his vintage toy, and that's really where the nostalgia comes when it comes to Turtles for me, is those vintage toys. So both of these figures very much look like their cartoon counterparts, which look a lot like those vintage toys. So they weren't too far removed, so I do really like that. I mean, it's not anything specific about this particular figure, but it helps in my enjoyment. So there is a ton to soak in with this guy, and in typical NECA fashion, the sculpt, the paint is just top-notch, but everything about this guy, just like some previous figures we've had recently, really does feel like a cut above. Now, all that said, the clear standout figure of the two-pack is Antrax, and I don't want to like take away from Scumbug by saying that, because he is a fantastic figure in his own right, but this guy is something else. Like, this is a wild, wild action figure. I would go so far as to say right this minute, this is my favorite Toon figure, period, in the entire line. I have not really been able to stop playing around with this figure since I got him out of the box. It's a figure that hasn't left my desk yet either, well, except for this. So that's a really, really good sign for me. He is surprisingly well articulated in ways that I really did not expect. So let's see what he can do. We've got a head that looks really, as far as like, I don't know, not human, but ant possible, I guess, up. He doesn't really look down though, which is a negative, but he looks, I mean, that is pretty wild. He's got a little bit of tilt. He's got rotation up there. All the arms act the same way. So they go out at the sides, They rotate up at their respective shoulders. Each one has a bicep swivel. They have double jointed elbows, so great range there. And then they've got hinges and rotation at the wrist. I did have some issues with, I believe, the bicep swivels on all of them. Like I had to just like force them. They didn't, obviously they didn't break, and they weren't hard enough that I needed heat. Just, you know, word to the wise. You know, exercise caution maybe, I suppose. You've got a diaphragm cut. He will have some twist here, a little bit of tilt, and then forward and backward. So that's his crunch, which works really well. So that's really nice. Like it's really smooth here. I do really appreciate that. So he goes kind of all the way around. Great range of motion on this ant body. You've got your waist twist down here as well. We've got legs that go out. They kick forward about that far. Backward slightly, you've got a twist up there. We've got our double jointed knees. And then we've got your rocker down here at those ankles. And you've got really, really good hinge. And despite the fact that these are different types of feet, they do have basically the exact same range of motion. And he also has his little ant butt back here that will bobble up and down, side to side, and then rotate. So it's just a little ball peg back there. So this guy, I mean, he is... Oh, I should also mention, he has moving antenna on his head too. So these on his nose, mouth area, they will swivel around. I always forget about these. And then these up here on his head will also swivel around. I wasn't sure if they were going to move at first or not because they were kind of stuck. You can hear they're kind of squeaky, but they do move and they will kind of influence his expression almost in a way. So that was a nice little surprise that these can, you know, you can get them all up in the air or something like that. Whatever you want to do with them, but they do also move. So he is incredibly well articulated. I was really curious how this multi-armed creature was going to translate because, you know, I've got other figures from other companies that have multiple arms that, well, more than two arms, I should say, and they don't always move all that well. But this guy has literally everything an arm should have on all four. So that's just a great, great selling point for me. Aesthetically, though, I think he is basically perfect. And I kind of said that with Scumbug, but I actually mean it here. I think he looks damn impressive. This guy is just so much fun to just stare at. It's a weird, weird figure. I mean, just in the confines of an action figure. It's a relatively large figure too. And we'll do some size comparisons with other figures here shortly. But he just has so much going on. There's a lot of different colors on this guy, from blacks to browns to tans to reds to purple, of course. I mean, just all kinds of little things about him that look just so cartoony. And obviously that's the point, but it's really well done here, and it's just so well executed on this guy. Proportions on him look great. He doesn't look like overly big because he has a little bit of extra height because of that torso. He just looks incredibly hulking and really evil as a result. I think the loincloth looks great. You know, again, a lot of asymmetry on this figure. Well, not as much as Scumbug, but he has some because he's got this ant foot sort of sticking out there. I, again, love the forearms. I mean, obviously it makes sense for this kind of creature, this kind of mutant to have this situation going on, but it works really well, you know, mechanically as far as articulation goes, but visually too. Like, it's just a really striking look to have something like this on your shelf. He definitely stands out. There's something very unique about this because obviously there are other figures that have four arms, but there aren't that many, and I certainly don't have that many on my shelf, so it's cool to get another one that is, of course, executed really well. He is not, however, one of those figures that is as clearly bisected down the middle like he is, but they kind of, as far as the paint goes, they kind of get that with the shading on the side of the carapace on the front, and then you can see it a little bit like on the boots, but his body is black, so he doesn't really get most of that treatment. You do see it on the hood that he wears. But for the most part, it's a very just well-painted, nicely sculpted figure. You know, the veins on his biceps are sculpted and painted. All of these little adornments on the belt, on the loincloth, they're all sculpted and painted. He's got a sheath back here for a knife. Even his little, you know, ant butt back here does look great. There's all kinds of like nicks and gouges in it. The red and the black, very striking color scheme. It definitely stands out against the purple that he's got. But, I mean, ultimately, the big thing for this guy is the head sculpt, and a lot of that is because it is really big. It's very bulbousy, not in a negative way, just in a very accentuated way. So this cowl that he's got around his head looks really great. The purple is incredibly vibrant and saturated and striking because, again, there's a lot of conflicting colors here. You've got reds, you've got blacks, pinks, white, brown, and then again you can move all these antenna pieces around to kind of influence some of his look. He's really got this crazy expression going on with his gritted teeth, a really angry look, and then you've got just this big bulbousy black nose out here. I've never been so enamored with an ant figure before that I can think of. I do love the vintage figure for Antrax. It's definitely a top tier Turtles figure. But this guy is just something else. I'm really impressed with everything about how he moves, how he looks, and just the way this guy was translated from toon to toy. I think NECA has kind of stepped their game up with this one, and I don't know that this one's going to be an easy one to top anytime soon. Now, as far as some size comparisons go, of course, we've got to start with the turtle. So here they are with the disguised Leonardo, and you can see that the Scumbug pretty much lines up with the Turtles. He's not supposed to be really big, but Antrax is absolutely massive by comparison. There is a lot of bug figure when it comes to this guy, and I think this is probably the best way to demonstrate that. Let's do a different kind of turtle now, just for sake of comparison. So here he is with, or here they are rather, with a Super 7 turtle. So there they are with the recent Ultimates Donatello. And then let's do a bigger NECA figure, something that kind of goes with these guys, one of the other rogues from, their specific episode. So here they are with Leatherhead, and you can see, Antrax is still even a little bit taller than him. He's bigger than Scumbug, but of course, Leatherhead is a lot more bulky than both of these guys. And then let's do another 7-inch scale figure that's not NECA. Here they are with the Mythic Legions, with a skeleton. And then let's do something that's out of scale. So here they are with the Mezco 112 Collective Conan for a more normal 6-inch representation. And then let's throw in something way different. So here they are with Chrome Dome. Let's pan up there. And you can see, of course, that he lines up very nicely because of course, he is part of the Rogues Gallery from the Night of the Rogues episode. So Scumbug, Antrax, Leatherhead, Tempestra, Slash, Rat King, and then, of course, Chrome Dome to give you the big bruiser entry in that lineup. So I think these guys are incredibly well-sized. Scumbug very much falls in line with the Turtles, but I think Antrax is definitely the star of the show in many ways with this 2-pack, not just because of the fact he looks awesome, but he's a really big, beefy figure that still works really, really well. And for accessories, these guys are pretty well stacked. I do think that there might be one change up from this release versus what was kind of solicited. I don't know that anything was ever actually shown, but they both said they came with extra hands, and neither of them do. So what you see is what you get as far as hands go. We'll start with Scumbug here because, he's had an accessory on him the entire time. It's part of him in the box, but we haven't really talked about it yet. So his exterminating gun here. And like I said, you can pop this tube off and pop it on the other side if you want to swap hands. But it looks really good. It's nicely sized. The green is really bright and vibrant. Sculpt is really nice on that gun. And again, the tube, very flexible. I've had no concerns about, any kind of issues with it breaking or ripping off or anything like that. So that's really cool. It's very much, kind of his signature thing. He doesn't really come with a lot of other really specific things. We do get a few little roaches here. So you've got 3 of these little guys. And you can, kind of just like we've gotten with Rat King and his rats. So you got 3 little roaches, which I think they look great. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but they look really good. And then we get this guy right here. This is actually from the Night of the Rogues episode. I don't know that it has a name, but it looks like a little, like beetle kind of device. He uses it to throw like an energy net on the turtles. So this is actually something for Scumbug. And then this is packaged with him. It's on his side of the tray. It's not from this episode. It's not, I don't know that it even has a name. It's from the Invasion of the Turtle Snatchers episode, where it's like a device that Bebop and Rocksteady are given to find fission energy. So there's like a joke about fission versus fishing and all kinds of nonsense. It's cool. I mean, it's really very much an animated style gizmo gadget thing. It's not something that Scumbug uses, I believe, in any capacity. But it's another one of those things that they try to pack in with certain stuff just to kind of fill it out a little bit. So maybe an extra thing you can give to Shredder, Krang, Bebop, Rocksteady, that sort of thing. And then for Antrax, he comes with, well, all of his requisite gear. So he is Krang's executioner, and he gets all the stuff that really goes with that type of job or role, I suppose. I will say right off the bat, he does have some incredibly hard hands. I've had to heat him up every time to get these to go in. Once they're in, they're fine, and you can stretch them to make them work a little bit better. But I would suggest heating his hands up if you see any resistance. So just heads up on that. So we get this sword here with a red handle, white blade with like the sort of spiked knuckle grip on it there, which is really cool. I do like that. We get the knife that goes in the sheath on his back. So this guy goes back here. You can just pop that in, just like that. Another white blade, red handle, but it's got a nice skull on the bottom. I do really like that. That's really cool. We get this big monster spiked club, which is a pretty wacky design in terms of just how it is. It's actually really, really heavy too, so you'll have to watch balancing this. The spikes are kind of spiky also, so word to the wise. The coolest accessory that he gets is his Executioner's Axe, though. This thing is humongous. I mean, it's almost as tall as Antrax himself. Got some nice gouges and some asymmetry on those designs. Paint is really, really clean and crisp. Of course, you've got the skull up on top. You can get him to hold this single-handedly or doing like a two-handed across the body. So you could at any point in time have all four of his weapons in his hands or on his body because of course you've got the sheath for this, and you know I like complete weapon storage, so that's really cool. So these guys come with, they come with a lot of stuff. The only thing that I kind of wish they had were some extra hands. I wish I could make both of them a little bit more expressive with their hands, Antrax in particular, but I'm also not that beat up about it either. It's one of those things that likely just had to be cut from the finished product based on what those original solicitations said. But otherwise, lots of cool gadgets, lots of cool accessories. Love the little bug guys. I don't really know what I'm going to do with them, but I love getting that kind of stuff in these packs. So overall, I really would go so far as to say that at this point in time, who knows what the future is going to bring for us with this particular line. This is the best set we've gotten. I think I said that with the Ground Chuck and Dirtbag set, and they were fantastic, and they still are. But there's so much about these two figures that just seem to be a cut above everything else. The way they move, the way they're sculpted, the super, super clean paint, really great accessories, and just wacky, weird designs. Let's be honest, these are some of the more out there designs in this particular line so far, and they're translated into figures perfectly. Scumbug is great, but really it's all about Antrax, and he is just expertly translated from tune to toy. There's no doubt about it. He is easily one of the sort of barometers for how good this line can truly be, from paint to articulation to sculpt. All the accessories he comes with, these guys really do kind of bring it when it comes to comparing them to everything else so far. And there's a reason why I really haven't been able to put them down. They are a lot of fun to play with. So that's going to do it for this look at the NECA Toys Cartoon Scumbug and Antrax 2-pack. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And until next time.